South Africans are keen to invest so that they can grow their money. However, some of them end up putting their money in wrong hands, even when they are legitimate investment tools to use. Recently, some discovered that their investments in a church scheme did not deliver what it promised and are taking the matter up with the police. To talk to us more about this, we're joined by Avi Kay, a financial advisor at Discovery. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on the SABC News channel.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. So firstly, why do people sometimes get scammed in dubious investments? I mean, there's a say that if it sounds too good to be true, then it certainly is.
That's exactly it. If it does sound too good to be true, it is. And we were just talking before about the repo rate, and that should be your barometer. That should be your guideline. You know, if that's the type of a return that one could get, you know, depending on which bank and how much above or below it is. But that's what you should be looking at, returns that are double that or triple that. Then you know you've got a problem. And most importantly, one needs to go to somebody and an institution that is reputable. If you're going to someone who just sort of knows what they're doing, or is talking the talk, or is being too pressurizing or too overbearing, you know you've got a problem, especially when the promises are too great. Most importantly, in South Africa, we're very blessed. Everything's regulated, everything's under control, and we don't have to do investments without the correct licenses. And therefore, one just needs to ask for the licenses, ask who the license holder is, verify that that person has a license, and only then start to talk to that person. And if they're not, referring you to one of the big banks, one of the big insurance houses, then you know that you might have a problem, and I will investigate that a little bit further.
But how does one identify if it is a scam? Because some people would argue that it becomes very difficult for one to actually see, because these people who actually get people to join into these pyramid schemes, they usually, look very legit and sound very legit as well.
Absolutely. You remind me of the incident that happened in Cape Town many years ago, where there was a particular person who came from Europe, came here, and really set up a tremendous scam. And when people would question him about his validity and his authority to be able to do things, he became very aggressive and almost intimidated people into submission. If you're in that scenario, then you know right away something's not right. The reason why people are taken by scams are two main reasons, and these are lifelong historical reasons for investment failures. It's greed and fear. Greed, because you need to make your money grow and you desperately need to get it to a particular point. Either you've woken up late in your retirement, or you've neglected to do your responsibility and invest the money, and now you're making up for lost time. And is fear or greed together, where you just think, wow, I can do so much better. Why sit in the bank when I'm getting 4.2% if I'm lucky, and I'm going to maybe pay tax on that money, when this individual is offering me 10, 12, 13%. It's not realistic, it's not practical, and most probably it is not correct. So therefore, always try to take emotion out of it. And if you feel that you can't do that because you're too emotional, driven by either one of those two emotions, get somebody else involved. Speak to a family member, speak to a friend and say, I need to bounce this off you. Am I making a mistake or not? But if you cannot get a proper license from a proper insurance company or a proper bank, then you know that you have a problem.
Yeah.
And if you hear a name that you've never heard of, and they don't tell you that they are underwritten by so-and-so or on behalf of this and this insurance company, then you've got a problem. And all you need to do is really just pick up the phone to the FSCA and say to them, I want to deal with this individual. These are they registered?
Mm-hmm. But also talking about this particular scheme that we are talking about today, the question, Avi, is can or should churches run investment schemes?
That's a very interesting question. Just if you look back historically, South Africa has a very, very proud history of stokvel organizations, of societies that on the whole have been run very well. We all know people who, are a lot older, have been contributing to these organizations for many, many years, and they've buried a few family members. They know when their time comes, they will be buried with dignity, will be there, etc., etc. But even now, these organizations need to be regulated and they need to be registered. So one needs to understand that, yes, a organization should be encouraging people to save. It should be pooling money. But there is a way and a correct system in doing it. And if it's just being left up to individuals to run, number one, it's not exactly legal. And number two, they don't have the experience. And a lot of stokvels and a lot of societies have partners with reputable banks, reputable financial institutions, and done incredibly well for their members. But again, as a member, just because somebody is wearing the garb or looks the part or talk, it's not good enough, and it's certainly not good enough anymore. You have a right to ask, please show me where the license is. Show me where the money is being invested. Please give me a report. And if you can't get that stuff quickly and timeously, then you've got a problem. And also, you can be complicit to something that's just not above board. Do not give money to people if they are not a registered service provider. I'm sure we all hear the adverts on the radio, when you hear them on TV, and it's a bit irritating because towards the end they all say, so-and-so, a registered service provider. If they don't say that, then they're not. And if they do say that, verify it. But again, I think it's important that we acknowledge the proud history of especially rural people and especially women in South Africa of creating wealth for themselves and their communities. But at the same time, it's got to be done within the ambit of law.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. I'm afraid we've run out of time. We'll leave it at that. But thank you so much for coming through.
Great, my pleasure.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's Avi Kay, financial advisor at Discovery, talking to us about what to look for in this pyramid schemes. And as he says, the first point is to check if it's been registered. Moving along.